Welcome to the Gist on Strat News Global. I'm Surya Gangadharan. You're on the Gist program and we are looking at DeepSeek, the Chinese AI, which has shaken the world, including the big titans, OpenAI and others. To talk about that, we have with me Pranay Kotasthane. He is head of the high-tech geopolitics program at the Takshashila Institution, think tank based in Bengaluru. So, is it as Pranay? Is it as big as it's made out to be? You know, the fact that it's affordable, it's open to everyone, it's been done in a short span of time. So many of these things are out there.
Yeah. Hi, Surya. So, I think the way we have to look at it is the US had all the big large language models, and there were a bunch of open source models which were competing with it, like France has Mistral and others. So there was that competition going on, and the perception was that China will not be able to do it because the export controls which the US has put since 2022 will restrict the most advanced chips going to China, and hence they will not be able to build any large language models. That was the starting point. But what has happened is, with DeepSeek coming in, that assumption which was based on the fact that you only need a lot of compute to get something like this done has been turned on its head. So that's the big thing. It doesn't mean that the Chinese models are beating US, because this is just the start. You know, you will see now OpenAI and others also coming up with new models. It's just like you're beginning the game. So in that sense, that's what is surprising. So the analogy that I give it is, there was an IPL match going on. There is Australia on one side and there's Zimbabwe on one side. Australia has all the best batsmen in, and they made a very big score, 320 overs. We thought no one else will get there, but here you have Zimbabwe coming and reaching 298, with very few batsmen with them. So that's the sort of broadly to understand. That's why it has spooked the markets as well, because the assumption was that you can only do this if you have infinite compute, which means you will need a lot of GPUs, one particular type like Nvidia's GPUs. But this shows that you can do that you won't need that many GPUs, you can do optimizations to achieve it, and that sort of led to a decline. But I'm sure it will go back in. It's like initial shock which is coming in.
So this $5 million development cost that's being talked about, that's very cheap?
Yeah, $5 million which is being talked about is for training costs. So generally, training costs for an AI model, what we will generally do is you will have a process called pre-training, where you will feed it a lot of data. For an LLM, you will generally feed the entire internet, Wikipedia, all the available sources, and based on that, you will modify the weights and biases. They are totally called parameters, and for an AI model there can be billions. So now we are thinking of trillion parameter models as well. So you essentially, based on the training data, you modify those weights such that it becomes a model which can predict when you ask something else or you project a new data. So the first stage is called pre-training, which is very compute intensive, because so that's why you require high-end GPUs. The next stage, when we ask questions and it answers, that is called the inference stage, where existing weights and models are used to answer the questions that we have asked. So that is what was done. So now the training costs were very high because earlier, but what they are claiming is we were able to do a lot of this training at a much lower cost. And the way they were able to do that is they have used a bunch of optimizations. These optimizations are not new. They were known in the software world, in US as well, but they tried all these optimizations together because they were faced with this constraint, the fact that they don't have GPUs. So it is because they were made to focus on this, they put the effort together, and many companies are trying. It's not just DeepSeek. Many companies in China, many companies in France, Mistral, others would also be trying. anything. It's just that they were able to get this together and bring it out. Now, is it $5 million? Is it $10 million? Is it $20 million? Right now, we can only take it what is given on face value. But the good thing is, this is an open source model, which means after the training, whatever parameters you get, these have been released in the public domain. OpenAI doesn't do it, but they have done it. So anyone in the world who can amass the little compute that you need for this, it's still significant. It's not as if you can do it with 3 or 4 computes, but if you can get that kind of compute, you can verify it. So within the next few days, you will also come to know whether that number is true or not. But for now, I think it is possible. It's these techniques were known, and it doesn't look as if they did something which was extraordinarily shady. I think they used genuine things. They have put all this out in the paper. It's in the public domain. So it's very difficult to fudge with that kind of transparency. Now, the other question is, did US export controls work or not? Now, that is also a question. We don't know which kind of GPUs they have used, how many GPUs they have used. That is not made public. But one thing we know is US export controls came into effect just a few months ago, and by that time already Chinese companies did have significant GPUs. So this DeepSeek R1, for example, is a model by a hedge fund company called Highflyer. So they have been doing these experiments for a long time, GPUs they were using for their finance related work, etc. So they did have a stock of GPUs already, right? So I don't think any company in India has bought those many GPUs yet. But if we are able to, then maybe you can try. But these things will become clear because this is public. You know, the information, the models, everything can be tested. And
in terms of technology and all that, is this something very big?
Yeah. So it is not very big in the sense that, as I said, these optimizations were known, but it gives an alternate paradigm in the sense that first we were thinking the only way, see, the US is trying, many companies are saying we want to get to artificial general intelligence, you know, where the artificial intelligence models are able to do things across many domains. It's not just for military, just for a specific game. So for that, their theory was that you can do this by doing scaling. And by scaling, it means you need a lot of compute. Compute needs a lot of power. That's why then they are reopening nuclear power plants to feed some of the... that was the paradigm, that we are aiming for the sky, and for that we have to break all barriers and do something which is spectacular. Now China is offered and made it clear that an alternate path is possible. Now they are not aiming for artificial general intelligence yet, at least. So this was that you can get to where you are slightly behind, but using much lesser demand on compute, much lesser demand on chips. So that's the new paradigm. So now it gives an opportunity for many other countries to think that, okay, US will still lead. There are a lot of new things you will see coming out from there. But it's not as if you don't have 500,000 GPUs, it's not as if you can be a non-player in AI. You can be a player. So in that sense, it's a different paradigm, but it doesn't mean that China is ahead of the US. Right?
So in geopolitical terms, it means that India also can get a foot in.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it has shown the way that if a hedge fund company can do that with a significant amount of compute, India can do that as well. And sometimes people think we have a lot of compute restrictions with the export control rules coming in. But for India, there are still enough compute can be gotten from the US given the validated end user authorization regime which is there, and we can build. So in that sense, it is hopeful for many other countries that open source and models are a way to go ahead. So that's the new thing.
So I'm just looking at the Chinese thinking, you know, they came up on something like this. Why don't we do the same? Or why?
Yeah, so then in politics of innovation literature, Mark Taylor has this concept called creative insecurity. So the idea is when you have the sum total of external threats are greater than the sum total of internal divisions, countries tend to prioritize more on innovation in terms of R&D budgets and all that. So that's like a focus area. So China and US have this creative insecurity that we got to do something. But I don't think we are yet there where we are feeling the creative insecurity as much. And also our R&D spending, etc. are quite low. So a lot of this happens, I mean, we are only seeing the model, but for that model, you needed a bunch of smart engineers who would have done a bunch of cutting edge work, not just in China. They would have collaborated with researchers in the US, come together to do this. So, it builds on top of several layers. So we also have to, it will take time until we build. But I'm sure like DeepSeek shows things that we will see some Indian model also which will come up. But does that strategically offer an advantage or not is a different thing, right? So now a lot of people believe that foundational models will get commoditized, right? So the DeepSeek, as I said, is an open source model. Now, if you have enough compute, you can run it yourself. So what is the strategic advantage in a country having that? It is an advantage for you to do more things, but does it mean India can achieve something from a military perspective or others? That's not the case, right? So we, from a strategic perspective, what Indian government has to think is, what is the part of this supply chain that India can occupy, and that gives it a leverage which prevents other countries from taking advantage of India, right? So we can't occupy the entire supply chain. No one can, US can't, China can't. So the idea is, where is our comparative advantage, and what can we do such that no country can sort of do harm India in that sense.
So where does this place China now in terms of AI? We've heard a lot about, economy going down, this, that, and the rest. And now you have this huge earth shaker.
Yeah. See, the Chinese overall model is still about investment-led model, which depends on export of things, it depends on manufacturing. So that hasn't changed. But this is still an idea that shows that China can provide an alternate pathway, and it is not to be taken lightly, right? So many of these export controls, there were talks that more and more export controls will come. Earlier Jake Sullivan mentioned small yard, high fence approach. Now that's no longer small yard, high fence. It's high yard, high fence for everyone. So it was going into this domain that we will just restrict chips from going to China and other countries, and that will solve. But it shows that whenever in the tech space such kind of constraints are put, companies are motivated to find alternative approaches, right? Just imagine Nvidia, given what its market value was. Obviously, it's an opportunity for other companies and other countries to see, how can I get into this game, right? So many things are being tried across the world, and you will see some of them coming to the fore in one form or the other.
So where do we go from here now? China has come out with this. Obviously, there will be pushback from other companies, especially the American tech majors. Where else in Asia do you see this happening? Do you see India as a likely candidate to?
So I mean, you will see many more foundational models coming from various countries. Maybe India has been talking about one which is optimized for Indian data and for Indian languages also. So maybe you will see that also.
Is that so important?
Yeah, I mean, it's not important from a developmental standpoint, not from a strategic perspective. But yeah, it's. I mean, people think if we want to put $5 million or maybe $10-20 million, what is the use case, right? How will you get money out of it? So one use case is that maybe if you are able to bridge the language divide, that might be useful. So that's the perspective. But apart from that, from a strategic point of view, no. We'll probably have to look at what are the models that will be useful from a military perspective, which will require a different data set. So we have to first put together that kind of data set and things. So that is what will help from a strategic perspective. But yes, otherwise, you will see many foundational models. I am sure we'll see something from Indian companies as well. There are already some foundational models which exist. They are not as capable, obviously, but you will see an improvement over time.
Do you see government doing more in this area? given that a lot of this is being pushed by the Chinese government, and I presume the US is also helping its own tech titans on this.
Yeah. Yes, I think the Indian government has already been doing things related to at least having data centers in India. For example, there is the India AI mission where they want to have GPUs in India. Now they are talking about having a program to help companies develop foundational models as well. So there is that DeepSeek has been talked about a lot in the government as well. That now we can't hide behind this that you need to have billions of dollars of compute to do something. So in that sense, it has sort of helped other countries think that we can also try to do this. So we will see new things coming.
But do we react only when pushed to the wall?
Yeah, as I said, that we didn't face the creative insecurity, so we are okay. Why do that when you can do something else, right? So idea is, see, for many of these foundational models, the pathway for earning revenue is still not clear, right? No one still knows how OpenAI is going to recover all that money that they are putting in. So in that sense, Indian companies are taking a more prudent approach that when others are building, many of them will be open source. Why do you have to build that now? But obviously for certain core cases which are unique to us or which are important to us, there we'll have to build specific models. So there's a lot of work happening, not in large language models, but use case specific models. So some companies are working on healthcare, right? So for example, so those might be useful, and already there are proprietary companies out of India from there. So we'll see more of those coming up. That kind of thing will happen. But yeah, foundational models, it will happen. I'm sure like 6 months down the line, we'll probably be saying there are so many foundational models. So who's ahead and who's behind?
So you'd say we tend to focus more on something which brings a return.
Yeah, immediate return. Yeah, probably. Yeah. There should be a use case.
The Chinese have deep pockets in that sense.
Yeah, so they can afford to, right? And there's also, we are still a $2,500 per capita income country. We have other challenges. There, 12,000, 13,000. But with this creative insecurity, there is a focused effort on what can we do to tackle this challenge rather than other challenges. It's just that.
Pranay Kotasthane, thank you very much putting it out there, and let's see where it takes India as far as AI is concerned. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Pleasure talking to you. That's all we have for you on this broadcast. Do subscribe to our YouTube channel, follow us on social media. Thank you very much. Good day.